according to the proportion of everyone, and the addition round about. 1 Kings 10:19. The throne had 6 steps, and the top of the throne was round behind, and there were stays on each side on the place of the seat, and 2 lions stood beside the stays. 1 Kings 10:20. And 12 lions stood there on the one side, and on the other upon the 6 steps. There was not the like made in any kingdom. These lions were built in Solomon's home and throne. They were built at the same time the temple was built. The lion was a clear known symbol for Asherah. Solomon, by building them, clearly established whom he was serving at the time. He served the Doma from his very birth. His mother Bathsheba, daughter of Asherah, saw to this. His mission was to build the main temple and gather financial resources to support the priestesses of Isis. One of the greatest stories involving Solomon is the visit of the Queen of Sheba. I have already told you that the country of Sheba was a virtual goddess stronghold. It had been ruled by queens as long as anyone could remember. This visit has confused historians somewhat for years. The Queen of Sheba had a country that could have swallowed Israel whole. Her wealth was such that she could have brought Solomon 100 times over. Most of Solomon's city, only 13 acres in size, was mud hut-like structures. The only real thing he could show her was his palace and the temple. With what I've told you so far, you should be able to figure out why she came. She came to see the temple. She and her people were in direct contact with the Doma. Her own temples were dedicated to the goddess. She was simply paying a state visit to honor the temple. The queens of the goddess temples opening up her newest franchise, so to speak. Now, think about this for a moment. Solomon has just built one of the greatest goddess temples of the age. Now, what is it, other than statues, you would expect to find in a goddess temple? That's right, a whole lot of women. Watch how the early church fathers deftly handled this overabundance of female flesh, this gaggle of girls. 1 Kings 11:1. But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites, of the nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel, You shall not go in to them, neither shall they come in unto you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love, and he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. For it came to pass, when Solomon was old, that his wives turned away his heart after other gods, and his heart was not perfect with the Lord his God, as was the heart of David his father. For Solomon went after Asherah, the goddess of Zidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. And Solomon did evil in the sight of the Lord, and went not fully after the Lord, as did David his father. Then did Solomon build a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, in the hill that is before Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. And likewise did he for all his strange wives, which burnt incense and sacrificed unto their gods. And the Lord was angry with Solomon, because his heart was turned from the Lord God of Israel, which had appeared unto him twice. That's it. We'll just say they were all his wives. Oh boy, notice here the inclusion of Molech. This god was worshipped by a small faction of Jews at Gehenna. It was one of the most wretched and despised cults of all times. It involved throwing children into a fire to appease the god. Think carefully here, my friends. The worship of Asherah was the worship of the goddess of fertility. As Hathor, she was said to be 7 divine midwives, the protector of children and mother in birth. Do you really think a religion based on the divine sanctity of women in childbirth would throw their children into a fire? Now, Solomon really was supporting such a God. God surely would have killed him right then and there. Wouldn't you suspect? At the least, his kingdom should have been overrun as a curse from God. This did happen to Israel, but notice in the below verse when. 1 Kings 11:10. And had commanded him concerning this thing, that he should not go after other gods, but he kept not that which the Lord commanded. Wherefore the Lord said unto Solomon, For as much as is done of thee, and thou hast not kept my covenant and my statutes, which I have commanded thee, I will surely rend the kingdom from thee, and will give it to thy servants. Notwithstanding in thy day, I will not do it for David for thy father's sake, but I will rend it out of the hand of thy son. The kingdom was not taken from Solomon. It was taken from his successor. Were they trying to associate this loss with Solomon's worship of Isis? You decide. My purpose in showing you both David and Solomon was to verify 2 main premises. 1, that both were worshiping Asherah, Isis. 2, that the assertion made by John the Baptist was indeed true. Since all his statements regarding Abram and his descendants are true, then his statements regarding Mary and Jesus must also be true. In fact, they are true. And the reason why John's followers came to think of them as evil will become all too clear to you later on. Now let us return to the New Testament and examine the life of Mary. Who was Mary? Did she serve the goddess as John the Baptist said? Let me make a statement now that you may find hard to believe. The Virgin Mary was one of the most hated women in all history by the early church fathers. What? You must be crazy. She's the mother of Jesus. They built all those churches to her. Why would they hate her? In order to understand my above statements, we must examine the Virgin in much greater detail. The first thing that you have to realize is that Mary, the biological mother of Jesus, and the Virgin Mary, whose temples and the churches are spread throughout the world and who appeared to Joan of Arc, Bernadette, and Lucinda, are not the same person. Let me say that again. Mary, the biological mother of Jesus, and the great Virgin Mary are 2 distinct and separate people. The founding fathers knew this to be true, and one of the greatest calculated risks of all time decided to use this knowledge in a plan to control much of the world's religion. In order to understand how, we must look back at the woman called Mary, mother of Jesus, and who she was worshiping. Aleph Mara Mem. Mary, we are told, was a young woman living in a quiet life of chastity. We picture in our minds a young, beautiful, poor girl of Judea with perhaps poor parents living in modest accommodations. The founding fathers assure us the pious and virtuous life did Mary lead. They would have us believe that her only true function in life was as life support for our great male God's child during the 9 months he was forced to endure the degradation of being inside